Is Ebenezer, or Ebby for short. And this is my project 3, Jacques Cousteau project. Um, so yeah, let's just take a quick look here. So up here I have my header, profile section, the adding and the editing button, the card section, and then I have the footer down here. Let's go ahead and open up the console log so we can look at the different resolutions. But before I get into that, I just want to go ahead and quickly show you the kind of different technologies I use and the different approach I decided to take to make the layout look the way it is. So first and foremost is the header. I didn't really use anything special here, just um, as you can see, there's it has some margin and padding here. That's all I really needed to do to make it what it looks like now. For the profile section, um, I use Display Flex, so you can see the little lines to separate the three sections here. So um, yeah, so I added the Display Flex to the parent, and all the child elements that came under that were these three different blocks here. So there's the profile image here, the profile info, and then there's a add addition button. And yeah, I think I use justify content display uh, space between or space evenly, something like that. We can go ahead and look at that real quick. Do I use it here? Line items. Oh, never mind. I just used the align items and I centered it. Yep, that's all I needed to use there. Then some padding, as you can see. And then, but for the actual profile info, I used a display grid. So in order to have uh, the title and the description underneath with the button on the side, I had to use display grid. So it has the two columns and then the two rows. Um, right. Yep. So yeah, you had to use the display area grid and for the title button, the title and button, and then the description. Um, then I added a gap to it. Just the same way I use display grid here for the cards, but instead of I actually specified how many cards I'm going to have, which was three for the column and two for the row. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. Yep, here it is. Let me actually up even more. Yeah, and here's all the list I have. Yep. All right, and I didn't do anything really special here for the footer. Just really the I just added a padding and margin to give it the way that it looked here. Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I did here. Let's look at the different dimensions when we move it into. So this is a uh, any like desktop or laptop view. So this is the view that you'll get. I'll turn this thing off. Then when we get to the tablet section, so this is what we start to see, and then we get over here to a little bit of a smaller dimension um, for those handheld devices like cell phones and stuff like that. And this is what it looks like when you have a regular size phone like iPhone or Android. And yeah, this is what we got here. Now let me go ahead and show you my code. All right, this is my index.html code here, um, and this is my CSS code. Now, something really important that I I have been learning and realizing how important it is the semantic tags over here. Um, now these really help um, identify what you're doing and how you can quickly see the different, like it's easy, it just makes things much more easier to read. Um, and it just like specifies the like where they're going to end up on the page. So, I mean, off the bat, like when we look at the header, automatically know like this is going to be the top of the page. We look at the section here, we know like it's going to come right under that, and just like what we have to see for like whether it's like a title, description, some something like that. And then we have like the footer. We automatically know that that's going to be at the very bottom. So these semantic tags just make it, and just make it really easy to read and see what we're doing, and just makes everything defined and presentable. All right. And now I just want to quickly go over the BMM elements. So BEM elements. So that stands for block element modifier. So it starts off with a block. So for example, page, we see here, so that's the block that we're focusing on. And it's actually the parent, right? And then uh, now if we want to add anything to that block, we have to do it by elements, which we have to do double underscore and then add the element. And if we ever want to do a modifier, it would just be one underscore and then boom, whatever the uh, modifier that we want to add there. Now, modifier is just really just, I think it's self-explanatory. It just modifies the whole element that you're working on. Now, the way that I used it here, so obviously when we go ahead and try to style it in CSS, where we take the page, obviously, and then we make the overall adjustment there, uh, the same way that we work with the elements and modifiers. We have to copy the whole thing. We can't just make all those changes in the parent. We have to make those changes in the child elements as well, or the child blocks, or the line here. Um, yeah, I did that all throughout here. Let's go to the actual page. Yeah, page content, page section. You can see that all here, page content and section. Now, so all these bad boys up here are within a block. I put it in a block folder, and when we actually go to our index here, they're all connected with the add import with the URL, and I indicated the file and went through and named each block I'm working with. So I called in the profile, header, footer, so on and so forth. Um, Now also added just the vendor at with the normal.css. So now the normalize.css, um, I really like to use it. I mean, it comes in handy for a variety of different reasons. First and foremost, it just makes the browser, um, you know, it renders it and it keeps it more consistent with modern styles. So that's that I always want to, at least now I'm trying to make sure like I'm always having a normalized file in all my projects, and I actually see why we use those things. Um, and yeah, it's really nice and useful there. Um, Now we also have our fonts. I can't actually open it up. Won't open it up, but I have it here. Where is it at? It's in the vendor. So I have the fonts here, and the way that I connected it into my project. So first and foremost, I downloaded it, had all those files in my computer, and then I actually went ahead and did the at font face, which called, and then with the source URL called every one of those files that we're going to be using, the fonts that we're going to be using, the inter, the regular, medium, and the black version. Um, and now whenever I went ahead and used that in my actual project, for like the titles or like card description, I did the enter, went ahead and called that, and I also went and added some secondary or backup fonts. Reason why we like to, have, alternative fonts is because, for whatever reason, whenever, if we run this or open it up on any like different machines or browsers, sometimes it doesn't guarantee that the original font that we implement is going to be run. So we need to have these alternative fonts that are much more likely to run if the first one ever fails. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Now, some of the challenges I faced here while working on this project, um, it's actually kind of frustrating, but really rewarding once I figured out what the issues were. So one of the biggest things were, so we have our regular, desktop resolution. Now the struggle was going from here and making sure like they all didn't like, as I like, decreased the screen size, it didn't like clump up together and just become like a whole mess, or code didn't break at some point. So first, like, when I first started and I would decrease the screen resolution, I think at some like this point right here, it would all like, first the button would just like mesh into this, tiny block, and you can't really tell what that was anymore. And everything just kind of squeezed together and became like one tiny blob. And I think even the lettering kind of like went all the way down here too. So sometimes we'll show this real quick. What I learned from one of my peers, or one of the tutors, they showed me this of doing the text overflow ellipsis and the white space overlap and then hidden. So like anything that was more than this width would just automatically be hidden. So that made things a lot easier. So for whatever reason, if it was uh, anything, so if I like squeezed in the size, it would just start to disappear and it would just kind of condense rather than spill out all the way down here. And even here, for this one, I was trying to figure out like how to make it not like squeeze into. I wish I can show you here. Let's do that. I think so I added the width here. So if I turned off the width, yeah, this is what would happen. So yeah, we love width. Helps this project so much. And I didn't realize at first, but I didn't have the border, so I just looked like this thing here. I had to get called out a few times by the reviewer. Uh, the hardest, I think one of the hardest things to figure out, and I really didn't understand why and how to make this happen. So oddly enough, when you look at the header here, there's a line at the bottom of yeah, there's a line at the bottom of this header. I'm like, why is there a line there? And I didn't think it was really important until again, the reviewer called it out. I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that, but I, looked at all these other things on, the buttons that I used here. I'm like, it kind of looks like a border, and it's just at the bottom. So I figured, okay, let me just use border bottom, and let's find that real quick. Yeah, I just used the border bottom uh, element, and it, yeah, worked very nicely. Did the 1 pixel solid, and and then the color in the Figma page over here. Um, I think this last thing was another tricky part too. The card section here didn't really give me much issue, honestly. Like, yeah, this was pretty cooperative for the most part. Um, the hardest part was the profile section and then the footer. For whatever reason, it just wouldn't move into the direction I wanted it to move. Um, which I got it to finally cooperate with me. I think one of the biggest issues when it came to the footer was, um, let me change the screen resolution. I believe, yeah, it was. I think yeah, it was the width. Like I didn't realize how much like this made a difference. Like I couldn't understand for a while. Like okay, this is where I was. I was like thinking so many other things of like how to somehow fix it. So like I would look at it. I'm like, okay, maybe it's with a footer or a padding issue. And then I would go ahead and try to fix that. And then you know, when I would like change the screen resolution, and I would see it like positioned in that same place, and while everything else is moving, the footer isn't moving. And I'm like, how do I fix it? So yeah, the width at 100% really helps with that for sure. It's a big fix for me. um, but yeah, and something else I realized was that if I so it's at 100%, boom, right? But if I moved it down to this kind of screen resolution, uh, you see one of my media queries kick in. So if I added another width here, so if I didn't add this other width, why can't I adjust it? Yo, why can't I move it? This is annoying. So you see it's crossed out, so we're no longer using it. I wish I can mess with it. Not sure why it's not letting me do that. It's weird. But in any case, so you see how here it kicks in 282 pixels. So if I kept that at 100%, the footer stayed at the very edge of the page, which I didn't want it to do. So I was like, all right, let me add a media query, and then made those changes, and that seemed to fix the code. But yeah, this is my project here. All in all, this was a fun and I think it, really pushed and solidified a lot of the things that we've been learning throughout all the other sprints. Yeah, this was a cool one. Ready to experience more of this.